today. I'd like to next turn to Mr. Dale Hall, who is the CEO of Ducks Unlimited and the former director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Mr. Hall, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you very much for having me here. Mr. Chairman, I request that my written comments be submitted to the record in their entirety.
And they certainly will. Thank you.
Again, thank you for allowing me to be here to speak on behalf of Ducks Unlimited in support of the HELP Act. This bill is very important and has a lot of components in it that are important to all of us in the conservation community. NAWCA, the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, is certainly a big part of that, and it's near and dear to Ducks Unlimited's heart because we work a great deal in restoring those wetlands out there. Over our 80-year history across the continent, we have now restored over 14 million acres of wetlands, and a lot of those acres have been restored with the help of NAWCA funding in the last 30 years. It's been a real pleasure to work with this committee in the past, and hopefully we're able to provide the information necessary to get this bill across the finish line. NAWCA has accomplished success in all 50 states. The program has conserved more than 33.4 million acres in North America alone. Excuse me. NAWCA has conserved valuable wetlands across the continent, but we are still in need of additional work. Wetlands are still under threat across the continent, and while we've done a good job, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has documented that wetland loss has dramatically accelerated by 140% since 2004. This non-regulatory approach to working with the landowners to get the job done is, we believe, the most effective way to help conserve those wetlands and move things forward. NAWCA catalyzes conservation efforts and resource managers and partners from many sectors to use a variety of voluntary strategies to restore and enhance degraded habitat as well as protect some of the remaining high-quality habitat. Wildlife-related recreation generates more than $100 billion in our economy each year. And we believe the ripple effect of that would take it up into several $100 billion. In the chairman's state of Wyoming, 140,116 hunters created nearly 5,000 jobs, while 302,758 anglers generated more than $476 million in retail sales. 8 NAWCA projects have been completed in Wyoming since the program's inception, and these projects have conserved 45,000 acres of critical wetland and wildlife habitat. In the ranking member's home state of Delaware, currently has 10 NAWCA projects completed or underway, and these projects have conserved 10,800 acres of wetlands important to the state residents. Taking $6.6 million of federal funding, leveraged another $12 million in private and non-federal funding in order to do these projects. These results are not unique and have been seen all over the country with more than 5,600 NAWCA partners. I want to emphasize that again, more than 5,600 NAWCA partners working together in a volunteer fashion to get this work done. Our average at Ducks Unlimited in getting the matching fund, the law requires 1-to-1 match. Our history is that we get an average of $3.2 of non-federal funding for every dollar of federal funding. That's a pretty significant payoff for the American taxpayer. I would also like to emphasize the importance in this bill of the reauthorization of the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. I have been through my career around to see NFWF grow and do all the wonderful things that it has been able to do, and we certainly support the reauthorization of the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. The Neotropical Migratory Bird Conservation Act, while only $6.5 million, it's critical to working with the international community and getting things done. And finally, my colleague here will speak to Chesapeake Bay, but it is a very important area. Like the Gulf Coast, where more than 1 million acres have been lost and partners are working together to try and restore those wetlands, the Chesapeake Bay is another true jewel for the American people. Again, I look forward to working with this committee and answering any questions that I can to help get this bill approved. It is a good bill. It is a bipartisan bill, and it is a bill that's very much needed. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here.